All right. I am just going to wait for some you. There we go. All right. Gonna wait for a few of you to come in. Um, I won't be before you long, right? That's what all the super churchy folks say. I am not one of the super churchy folk, but I will wait a few minutes for you guys to come in while you do that. Do all the things we're supposed to do, right? Like, share, follow, all the things, right? So I'll wait a couple seconds for a handful of y'all to come in, and then we're going to get started. I'm not going to do the thing that says, when we get X amount of people in the room, then we'll start. We're not doing that. We're just going to wait a minute or two. In the meantime, how has everyone's Monday been? I know some of you may have had an extended vacation and had the luxury of taking a few extra days off from work. And so for some, today might be your first day back in the swing of things. So, how was your work day? For those that have been working for quite a bit, or those that went back to work last week, how was coming back for like your first work Monday of the year? Was it stressful? Was it exciting? Was it, yeah, same stuff, different year? Um, what was your work day like while you guys are getting all situated and doing all the things? I am going to get started. So, hi, my name is Hannah Love of Love More Music. I'm a vocal coach, I'm a worship coach. And this podcast, I guess you would say, is called The Sound of Music. One, because it's my favorite musical, like of all times. And two, um, as musical creatives in the church or as those who serve on the worship team, the tech team, the worship pastor, worship leader, BGVs, musicians, there are issues that come up in the church. There are candid conversations that we need to have. There are things that we notice in the church. There are things that we feel in the church. And oftentimes, one, we may not have a safe space to kind of just feel and vent. Um, but two, we don't really know how to navigate. We don't really know what to do or how we play a role in the bigger picture outside of just music, right? As musical creatives, we know we come to church, we sing, we go home. We come to church, we play, we go home. We come to church and we pastor others and we go home. But we kind of don't know how to navigate what happens with the rest of the church in our ministry or how we serve in other capacities in the church outside of just singing, collecting a check, and going home. So these candid conversations are designed to not just give you information, but they're also designed to give you practical tools and tips on how to navigate in the spaces that you're called to serve in within the body, right? So last week, if you didn't catch the live stream, last week we talked about, it was very controversial. It was all over like the interwebs and whatnot. William Murphy, right? How he started his watch night, all of the controversial things, and everyone has their feelings and their opinions and their thoughts towards it. Rather than to hop on the bandwagon per se and just add to the noise, I felt like a better approach as the musical creatives would be learning how to navigate being a member of or serving in a church that does something controversial like that, right? So I would suggest you go back and you catch episode 1. That was last week, Wednesday. You go back and you catch it. And weigh in. What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? What are some things that what are some feelings that you might have had, or what are some thoughts that you might have had toward it? I want to hear it. So go back, catch it. Two, let's get started with today's topic. So today's topic is the word of the year, right? If you have been in church for more than 2 seconds, right? At the top of every year, December, the bottom of the year, but definitely we see this a lot in January. Churches have what is called the word of the year. The pastor comes up and says, the Lord has given us the word of the year: empower, enrich, go forth, break the chain. Um, it's usually like some one word profound thing, and they will spend, depending on the nature and the culture of the church, they might spend one service, or they might spend a series unpacking the word that they felt the Lord gave them as it pertains to the church, right? So it might be flow, it might be still, it might be peace, it might be going far in 2024. Is usually something that rhymes, and it's something that's really catchy, and it's cool, and in churchdom we look forward to it, we love it, right? It is how the church vision casts for the year. It is how the pastor or the pastoral team, who, believe it or not, depending on the type of house that you're in, the pastor doesn't get the word for the year in January. He usually gets the word for the year around November. The pastoral team behind the scenes are fasting and are praying into the word, right? So by the time the word is released to the congregation, the pastoral team is already pretty much on one accord. They kind of know, yep, the word of the year is flow. How are we going to flow? Or what does flow mean for our church? Or how are we going to flow with other churches, neighboring churches, whatever the case is, right? So the pastoral team typically knows what the word of the year is. And so they begin setting up their ministries within the church to kind of align and partner with this word, right? And so by the time the pastor gets on the pulpit, either watch night service or the very first Sunday or Sabbath of the year, they say, the Lord has given us the word. This is the word of the year. All right, cool. In doing so, he then spends about 45 minutes or so sharing what this word is. He then spends, breaking down how this word is important to um, the body, how this word is designed to equip the body, how it is going to separate us from any other church that is in the area, right? Pastors will also do vision casting. It is where they say, not only this is the vision, only are we casting the vision or telling you what the vision is, but this is a great time, if you're not yet a member, to join. If you desire to partner with us, here are the ways that you can partner with us, right? We often hear words like we are going to declare and decree, right? So if you've never been in church spaces before, declaring is to pronounce, assert, or openly align yourself with, insert thing here, or to reveal your intentions. And decreeing is an official order issued by legal authority. So when we as believers are declaring and decreeing what God is saying, we are essentially revealing the heart of God, the intentions of God, the identity of God, and we are aligning ourselves with what God has already said. And then we have an official order issued with the legal authority that we have as kingdom citizens. So we hear all of these things and we're like, that's churchy terms, which it is. This doesn't really apply to me. I'm just here to sing. I'm here to sing, cut my check, make all payments to the link provided below, keep it moving, right? Another thing that churches do at the beginning of the year is they tend to do a corporate fast. So, in addition to getting the word of the year or the theme of the year or the message of the year, in addition to getting all of those things, we are also getting an opportunity to hear from God as the body, right? So we're going to turn down our plates. Usually churches do a 10-day or a 21-day fast, very common, typically called a Daniel's fast of sorts. You're limiting your food intake as well as consecrating, limiting certain social activities for a season, a period of time. And you are hearing how this theme or how this message or how this word is going to apply to you as a person that is a member of this house or seeking to become a member of this house, and then finding ways to partner your passions, your goals, your desires, your resources, and funneling them to the church. Right? It allows the church to get on one accord so that the church is starting together and not divided or separated. I will use a personal example, right? So I attend H4G, whoop, whoop, shout out to my church. And our theme or our what kicked off our year is hearts in the city, right? One of the words is love, but it is the heart of the city. What does it mean to have a heart for the city? What does it mean to look at the city and see God's heart pulsing within the corners and the crevices of the city? What would it look like if the city that we lived in, we are based out of Brooklyn, in South Carolina. But what would it look like when we not just see God's heart pulsing through the veins and the streets of the city? What does it look like for our church to be a lighthouse in the city, right? For us to draw others that don't know who Jesus is to the love of the Father, but just run with this group of believer, right? And so what happens is leaders begin to vision cast, they fast, they sit and they say, okay, if we are choosing to be a member of this church, and we are intentionally going to throw all of our efforts and resources here. Who is in my wheelhouse that is active in the city? Who is in my wheelhouse that can contribute to our initiatives? Who is here who has the keys to the city, right? Who is here that can write laws and push them forward? Who is here that can write grants, right? These are our resources. What programs, what initiatives, what special days are we going to have that allows God's heartbeat to be felt throughout the city? Right? That is essentially what the fast will do. Again, it gets everyone on one accord. It makes sure that we're all one band, one sound, right? Here is where it gets a little funky as musical creatives in the church. We kind of don't know where we fit in that, right? We get the set list, we sing, we keep it moving, right? Jesus is felt in the room, but sometimes our song choices or the way that we're leading the team isn't exactly conducive with the word of the year. You might get a solid 2 to 3 weeks out of us, but then by March, it kind of fizzles out, right? Now the worship team is singing what is most current, what just came out, what they feel the Lord is saying in that moment, what they feel the congregation needs to hear, what messages is the Father desiring to portray to the people. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying it's bad at all. It's actually a good thing. I am suggesting how much more effective could we be if in the back or the front of our heads, every worship set we created was always in alignment with the theme of the year and it didn't just stop in January. Yes, the theme of the year is love. Every single week, how is the congregation feeling the love of God in worship? The word of the year is peace. How is the congregation feeling the peace of God? Challenged to bring peace home, challenged to be peacemakers in the marketplace or peacemakers at school or peacemakers in the supermarket. How are we being intentional with singing peace for 52 weeks as opposed to singing peace for just 2? This is where sometimes as musical creatives, we kind of get a little lost, right? If you're a BGV or a musician, you solely rely on the worship leader to pick the worship set. If you are a worship leader, you're relying on the worship pastor to continue to give direction and spiritually pour into you so that you are not depleted when you are pouring into the congregation. Sometimes we forget to check and see how this word that the church got is being translated in music throughout the year, as opposed to just the first few moments and that's it. So, whether the pastor is doing a sermon series, whether the pastor is just doing a one-off sermon, or whether a guest preacher is coming in, as worship leaders, as musical creatives, we're tasked with setting the tone for service. What are three practical things that we can do to make sure that the set list that we are singing, the set list that we are preparing, is in alignment with the word of the year? And at every point in time during the year, the congregation is being reminded all of our efforts, all of our energy, all of our resources is going towards this theme that the Father has given our leaders, and we're carrying it out throughout the year. Number one, I would suggest initiating a fast with the worship team separate of the church. So, yes, the church did a corporate 21-day fast. Cool. We are charged. We are ready to go. The worship team needs to do a fast separate of the church. How are we checking our ministry? How are we checking our department to make sure that we're spiritually sound enough to do this for 52 weeks and not fizzle out after 2 weeks or fizzle out after a month? Right? Ask the team. Here are some questions that, as worship pastors, you can pose to the team. What does this word mean to you? Where can you look for evidence of this theme in scripture? Find a Bible character who you feel exemplifies or lived out this theme in the Bible. Whose lifestyle can you see mirroring this theme in the Bible? How does this vision and how does the theme for the year or the word of the year align with the vision and the mission of the worship team, and then translate to the vision and the mission of the church? So say, for example, the word of the year is love, right? The pastor says, I feel the Lord is calling us to love in this season, right? We are going to spend the year loving on people. As the worship team, we're going to fasten to what the word love means, and not just I love my mom, I love my dad, I love my cat. No, 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 no. We are going to look at what God's definition of love is, right? We know it's agape love, it's unconditional. What our understanding of love in, how have we been loved in the past? How do we receive love? How do we view love? How do we love on others? How do we allow the unbeliever or the person that we don't really like to still feel God's love even when we aren't in their presence and they are in ours? Okay, now that the worship team understands that, let's look at someone in the Bible who is walking out love. Look at their life story. What did they do? Who did they interact with? How did they speak to others? How did they love on others? How did they cherish others? Right? Now that we've seen a Bible character, now that we know what love is and we know how to love on others, how do I understand the love of the Father? How do I receive the love of the Father? What are areas of my life where I have shut the love of the Father out because I feel embarrassed, or I feel ashamed, or I'm scared, or I don't know what that looks like? When the musical creatives makes it personal to them, every time they stand up to sing, even if they don't sing a song with the literal word love in it, because they spent 3 days or 5 days or 7 days fasting into this topic, now the worship team, now the musical creative team is on one accord, and they are able to translate the heart of the Father, the theme of the church, within the weekly presentations that they serve or that they offer to God in front of the congregation. Now your worship team is on one accord, and now we kind of figure out how we fit in. Right? So, one, initiate a fast within the worship team. Two, create weekly devotionals surrounding the word. So, yes, you started your year off, you did your corporate fast in the church, then you did your week long or your 3-day or your 5-day or your 7-day fast with the worship team. Here is where the worship pastor now has to keep that momentum going. Every week that the worship set goes out, send out a quick devotional thought. Tie it in with last week's sermon. Tie it in with the upcoming week's sermon. Pick a verse and allow the team to focus and hone in on this devotional thought. This keeps the worship team from getting distracted. This keeps the worship team from getting off course. This allows the worship team to be reminded, hey, in everything that we're doing, in the songs that we're picking, in the music that we're playing, in the way that we are ministering, it is centered around the theme of the year, right? How are they challenged, the musical creatives? How are they challenged to look in the word for the running theme that the church has? How are they challenged to grow spiritually with the house and then with the team? How are the discussions that are had weekly bringing the musical creatives back to center or back to base? So we come in, and instead of just plowing into rehearsal, right? Rehearsal is at 7:30. Rehearsal ends at 8:30, 9 o'clock. Instead of coming in and just plowing into rehearsal, spend about 15, 20 minutes discussing the devotional thought. Now you've started the rehearsal, reminding them about the word or the theme that is running throughout the year. Make sense? Making sense? Cool. The last thing, and this is probably extremely important, but the last thing that as musical creators you want to do, you want to check in with the pastor. How are the set lists that we are presenting in alignment with your heart? How is it coinciding with the vision and mission of the church? You said you wanted the theme to be love. You can either do this every week, you can do this every month. I suggest every month. I don't think you should do this every quarter because it's not nearly enough. How is the set list in alignment with the theme? How does the set list remind you of what you say? How does it hold you accountable? How does it hold us accountable? What do we need to change? How does the set list coincide with the sermon series that you're in? What's working? What did you really like about this past week or the past month worship set? What did you see was an area of development? You like this, but you didn't like this, and it needs to be tweaked a little bit so that there's a better mesh. Or what did you absolutely not like too much, and what suggestions do you have for us to change? So say, for example, the worship team gets up and says, hey, or the worship pastor or the worship leader goes to the pastor and says, hey, I'm just doing our weekly check-in. This week we sang I love you, Jesus. I worship and adore you. It's reminding people of love. It's reminding people that Jesus is who we are supposed to love. It's who we adore, etc. What is your theme for the upcoming week? What worship song would you like us to build a set around? The pastor might say, you know what? I'm so glad you asked. This week, I'm kind of preaching on the love of the Father. Right? We've understood the love of Jesus. He came, he sacrificed, he died, right? I really loved, he came from heaven to earth. That song you sang was really, really dope. It went really, really well into, I love you, Jesus. It was really dope. But this week I'm focusing on the love of the Father. The worship leader might say, oh, good Father. How do you feel about that song? I actually love it. It's dope. Let's do it. These conversations that you're having, it maintains open lines of communication. It allows the worship leader and the worship pastor at every moment, the worship pastor, and the senior pastor at every moment to feel comfortable enough to speak, to have healthy dialogue. Two, it builds relationship. You get to see a different side of your leader outside of the pulpit. The conversation might start with, hey, I really want us to do good father. It really coincides with the theme or the message of the upcoming service. Great. The worship leader might say, you know what? That's a little difficult for me to sing. I didn't grow up with my dad, or I'm currently grieving the loss of my dad, or um, I never knew my bio dad, but my stepdad like stepped in and literally loved me as if I were his. I didn't even know I wasn't his biological child until I got older. You start to reveal the heart of the person, worship pastor to the pastor, or worship leader to the pastor, and vice versa. So now the pastor has the ability to pour in and affirm the person who is pouring out each and every week. Right? It allows for relationship to be built. So you see your leaders as a person outside of the robe and the mask and the pulpit. Right. These conversations, whether they're had weekly or monthly, they give room for adjusting themes. Right. The theme of the year could be love, but as the year progresses, the pastor might see, hey, this really isn't a love like I love you. This really isn't a love like I adore you. This is more so the love that corrects. I love you so much, therefore I correct. And so now the theme for the year might shift a little bit. We're still experiencing the love of the Father, but we're about to walk into a season where the Father is going to start calling out things that don't reflect Him and don't look like Him and don't do Him justice or honor Him well. And so maybe the worship set needs to be a little less love and a little more grace and understanding and patience. That is something that wouldn't have come up outside of your weekly or your monthly check-ins, right? It keeps everyone on track, and it ensures that the musical creatives are, one, always in alignment with the theme of the year, two, making sure that their team is solid, they're equipped, they're prepared, and three, it really allows the pastor to see, hey, I didn't make a mistake when I brought you on board. This is something that, as believers, as musical creatives, we often don't realize it's important. We don't see it's important. We hear the word of the year, we jump, we shout, we, buck and do all the things, right? We get excited, we shout into the word, but then we don't learn how to make this word practical, and we don't know how to make this word practical. We don't know how to make it make sense with our department, right? If you have small groups in your church, it's easy for the small group to align with the theme of the year, right? They can create small group discussions around last week's sermon. It's easy for the deaconesses or the deacon board to live out the word or the theme of the year. It's easy for kids' church or Sunday or Sabbath school, depending on when you worship, to live out the theme of the year. But sometimes us as musical creatives, we kind of get stuck. We kind of fall into like this, I don't know how to make the theme or the word of the year. Great, we shouted to it on Sunday. I wept about it on Monday, but I don't know how to apply this for the next year. So these 3 tips I feel would tremendously and drastically transform and enhance the worship services, right? So thanks so much for coming to my talk. I love and I appreciate each and every one of you. A few upcoming events. For one, we are still marketing and pushing and inviting you to come to Gathering Judah's Tribe. We want to see you in the building. What is it? I'm so glad you asked. It is a week-long conference. It meets every night at 9 o'clock. It's just for an hour. because I honor your time, right? You are going to be poured into. You are going to be equipped. You are going to be challenged. You are going to be stretched. Each presenter each night will pour into a different aspect of the musical creative team, right? We're going to talk about what worship is. We're going to pour into the worship pastors. We are going to pour into we're going to pour into the worship pastors. We are going to pour into the worship leaders, the musicians, the background vocalists. We're going to learn about the spirit of excellence and the heart of worship, how to support your leader and how to support your team as we grow and as we take charge and go into the new year, right? So Gathering Judas Tribe is the conference that you don't want to miss. Tickets are available on our website. We're going to drop that link right here for you. Yeah, we are so excited to see you. We are so excited to have you join in and grow and develop, right? So you don't want to miss it. The event starts not next week, Monday, but the week after, right? And so you still have time to get your ticket, right? That's number one. Number two is the sanctuary. This is the safe space for the musical creatives. We feel our feelings. We experience church hurt. We are frustrated. Sometimes we're hurt. Sometimes we're sad. Sometimes we're depressed. We're anxious. We don't want to get up. We don't want to do anything. And we oftentimes don't have a safe space to just vent. We don't have a safe space to just unpack. We don't have a safe space to just, blah, right? We are expected to be the pillar and we are expected to hold the church up and encourage us and encourage the congregation, sorry, but then who encourages us? So the sanctuary is a safe space for the musical creatives in mind. It allows you to feel, to think, to process, but most importantly, it allows you to heal. There is a flyer, we're working on it, that if all things go well, will be next week, Monday at 7 p.m. It will be in Brooklyn. And so there will be more information to come. So be on the lookout for those, for that flyer. I love you guys so much. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm glad that I was able to borrow a few minutes of your time, and I am going to gently return it so that you can go be great and go be awesome and you can enjoy the rest of your evening. I love you so much.